I want to get the perspective of Tom Burke, the chairman of Third Generation Environmentalism, and he's with me now in the studio. Tom, we were listening, well, thank you for being here, first of all. We were listening to some of those video messages, really importantly, hearing from President Putin and also President Bolsonaro, neither of whom are here. How much does that matter?
I don't think it matters as much as people would think, that they're not actually present, particularly these days.
Delegations.
They have very strong delegations, and particularly these days that people are used to the idea of Zoom, so I don't think it makes quite the register it would have done with the audience before. But what matters is the signal that they're giving, and by sending messages, they're sending a political signal. And it's the signal that they're sending that matters, because what happens now, after the leaders have sort of segments over, is we go into these long periods of negotiations for the next 10 days, where officials are taking that signal and translating it into these negotiations. So the strength of the signal matters more than whether somebody's actually in the room or not.
And crucially, what we were saying before we were on air is that the signal, you think, coming from Brazil on deforestation isn't strong enough, and Brazil, of all countries, needs to send the strong signal.
Brazil really does need to send the strong signal, because the Amazon in particular acts both as a sink for carbon dioxide, but also, if you destroy it, it becomes a source of adding carbon dioxide to the air. So the Amazon, and then it matters for all the other reasons the Amazon matters, to do with the wildlife and so on. But yes, and you know, he sent much stronger signal domestically over the last few years that it's fine to go and burn down the Amazon. So I'm not sure the signal he sent to the world today will actually override that signal. And his ability to stop what's happening in the Amazon is quite low. I mean,
yeah, I was just going to say, he talks about illegal deforestation.
Yeah.
I suppose it depends how you define the legality of what's happening.
Absolutely right. And the thing that is going to make a difference, however, now, because he's actually put the pledge on the record, which is a first, is we now have much better remote sensing. We can do almost real-time track what's happening in the forests everywhere, not just in the Amazon. And that means we have a better chance of seeing whether people are doing what they said they'd do or not. So we're able to monitor that, as indeed not just with forests, but with some other pollutants as well. We're able to much more do real-time managing. That's a virtue of the advances in technology since Paris.
All right, and notwithstanding that lack of strong signal that we would have hoped for from Brazil, what do you make of what's been announced? How important is it? How much will it solve in terms of that 1.5 degrees?
Well, it helps us to stay on a path to 1.5. On its own, it's not going to get us there any more than any of the other individual things we do. But what matters most of all now, particularly because we've got to mobilize lots of private sector money to drive the big amount of change, is there needs to be confidence that governments are actually moving us forward. They're serious about getting us to 1.5. And what that does is it mobilizes opportunity seekers financially, people who see that as an opportunity. We tend to hear a lot from the people who see that as a constraint, because they'll have to stop what they're doing. We tend to hear a bit less from the people who are going to see it as an opportunity, because they're very busy getting on with taking the opportunity.
Of course, there's always winners and losers, aren't there, in all of this? And you said that no one thing would get us there, but I'm just wondering if there's a couple of things that could get us there. For example, if the United States and China both committed to more aggressively bending their emissions curves by, say, 2025, go further than they've already gone, wouldn't that alone get us there?
Not alone, but it would again, you know, there are leaders and followers, and if there's nobody leading, it's hard for the followers. And I think if you've got that kind of agreement you're talking about from China and the United States, then again, you mobilize so much opportunity seeking in the rest of the world that it takes us down that road faster. Again, the signal that came out of the G20 was really clear. We've got to go faster, and it's the next decade that really matters. So the kind of agreement you're talking about, if we can get it, would be really helpful. But I don't think we're going to get that, certainly not this week.
The other thing we're looking out for, of course, Tom, is the financing. So what do you think we might realistically get out of COP26 in terms of the money?
Well, there's a series of different sort of money. It's the 100 billion promise that we made. I think we're going to see something that's more credible than what we've done now. We've not got there. We've not fulfilled the promise. We're now talking about getting there by 2023. And I think we're talking about that in a way that is more credible and will do the job. But
Or
it's
600 billion over 6 years?
Well, no, that's a proposition. I'm just talking about the 100 billion we've actually said we do. We haven't said we do that yet. But that's one bucket of money. A much more important bucket of money in many ways is what we get from the the World Bank and the other international financial institutions to help with recovery. And it's not only the amount that we get there, but how fast that money comes out.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry to cut you off there, Tom. Very rude of me.